These notes are going to be for Tuesday, September 26th over function machines and function notation. So yesterday we talked about what a function is. So again, just a reminder, that's when x does not repeat. So today we're actually going to do some math with that. So a function can be thought of as a machine, so like a machine that makes something. So a machine that assigns one output to each input or to every input. So just a reminder from yesterday that the output is always going to be the y, and the input is always going to be the x. So I'm actually going to list that here. So output is going to be the y. The inputs are going to be the x's. So you put in an x, you get out a y. You put in a different x, you get out maybe a same y, but a different y sometimes. So the goal is that you put in a different x every time. Okay? All right, so a way that we use function notation is like this. So this reads f of x equals 3x plus 4. So again, those parentheses, f of x equals 3x plus 4. So this f of x part right here, I'm going to kind of skip down and then go back. This f of x part right here is the same thing as saying y equals. Okay, so f of x is the same thing as y equals. It's just in function notation, so it's a little bit different. Okay, and that f of x is going to be our output. The x part right here, though, so this arrow is pointing to the x, that is actually going to be our input. So they're going to put some number there, and they're asking you to put that number in for this x and then evaluate it. Okay? The 3x plus 4 part is just the function. This is the actual math part that you're going to use. So this is the function. All right, and then I'm going to go back to this top box over here. The f part is just the name of the function. So in this one, it's f of x, but it could be g of x or h of x. So that's just the name of it. So this is just the name of the function. Generally, we use f, g, and h are commonly seen also. So I'm just going to write those out here just so you know. You might also see g of x and h of x as well. All right, so this is how the math part actually works. It says find and illustrate f of 2 and f of negative 1 using the function machines below. So we were given the function 3x plus 4. So we are using f of x equals 3x plus 4. And they asked us to input a 2. So we are inputting a 2 in for the x right here. So we're going to input a 2, so I'm going to write it in the box. So 3 times 2 plus 4. So just a reminder how I knew that. When we have 3x, that actually means 3 times x. So I have to put some kind of multiplying symbol there. I could put the dot if I wanted to, but if I just put 2, then it changes to 32. So you have to actually multiply. So 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 plus 4 is 10. So we input a 2. I'm going to write that kind of at the top here. So we input a 2. We used our function here to simplify. So this was 6 plus 4, and we got an output of 10. So we actually could write that as an ordered pair. They might have you do that sometimes. But as an ordered pair, the x is the input, so that would be 2, and the output is the y. So this ordered pair, 2, 10, represents this function notation. Okay? Another way they could write that is f of 2, right? That was the input, and we got out a 10. So just know that might be another way you see that. Okay? Not a huge fan of this second thing. But all that tells you is you put in a 2, you got a 10 out. Okay. All right, so same thing on the other one. We're going to do f of negative 1. So we're inputting f of negative 1, which means I'm going to take my function again, 3x plus 4. Right. So instead of x, I'm inputting negative 1 plus 4. So 3 times negative 1 is negative 3 plus 4 is 1. So our input was a negative 1. This is where our function machine did the work, or we did the work essentially. And then we got an output of 1. So if I were writing that as an ordered pair, my input, which is the x, was negative 1. The output was positive 1. So there actually is a way to do this in the calculator. It is really important that you know that you're substituting the number in for the x value. So we are substituting negative 1 here. We are substituting 2 here. So really important that you know that. And you actually have to tell your calculator that part of it. So the way you do this in your calculator is you go to a new document. We want to add a calculator. And so I'm actually going to just type this part of the function in, so the 3x plus 4 part. So I'm going to type 3x plus 4. And then I need to get a vertical bar. So the way you get that vertical bar, it's asking your calculator to evaluate, is you push control and equals. So control and then equals is right under it. And you're going to use the bottom right-hand little line that comes up. So we're going to enter on that. So we put in our function, we put in that vertical line. So control equals, again, gets that. And we want to know what is that when x equals our input. So I have to put x equals 2. So when x equals 2, I want to know what does that equal. And so when I push enter, it tells me that it's 10, which is exactly what we got right here as our output. So same thing, if I try it again, I would type in 3x plus 4 and then control equals to get that vertical line. And then I have to tell it what does x equal. So x in this example, my input was negative 1. So I'm going to put x equals negative 1. And it gives me an output of 1, which is, again, exactly what we got. So your calculator will help you out with this. What I ask is that you show the work for substituting, but then you can use your calculator to actually have it evaluate. All right, so let's look at some on the inside and practice that a little bit more. So on the inside, we have f of x, which is x squared plus 3, and we have a g of x, which is x plus 1. So if it has an f, we're going to use the f equation. If it has a g, we're going to use the g equation. So that's how that works. Okay? They put some little function machines over here for you if you want to use those. I'm not going to use those, but just in case you want to use them. All right, so we're going to be inputting on this one 3 into the f equation. So what I want to see on your paper is this equation with a 3 substituted in for x. So I'm going to plug in a 3 or substitute 3 in like that. What I don't want you to do is type that in your calculator because this one's pretty simple, but you might mess up when they get a little more difficult. So please use your calculator for this. So I'm actually going to type in the f of x equation part. So I'm going to type x squared plus 3. And then control equals, again, we'll get that little line. So bottom right-hand corner there. So control equals, get that line. And I want to know, what does that equal when x, or my input, is 3? So when x equals 3, that is 12. And if you had done that, hopefully you know that 3 squared is 9, because that's 3 times 3. So 3 squared is 9, plus 3 is 12. But I would rather use your calculator. So this equals 12. So if I were going to write that as an ordered pair, it would be 3, 12. So our input was 3, our output is 12. Same thing with g. So our g equation is x plus 1. So I'm going to rewrite this x plus 1, but this time I'm substituting in a 3 for this equation. So that would just be 3 plus 1, which I think we could all do and say is 4. But just for the sake of practicing, I would type in x plus 1, control equals to get that line. And when x equals 3, sure enough, we do get 4. So this equals 4. So as an ordered pair, I could write that as 3, 4. All right, we're going to do a couple more here. So f of negative 2. So I'm using the F equation for this one because there's an F there, right? So F, F. So right here where that X is, I'm going to replace it with -2. This is when the calculator is really helpful because if you don't type this in right, or if you don't do it right, then you're going to get the wrong answer. So I would substitute in a -2 there, but I'm going to type this in up here. So x squared plus 3, x squared plus 3, and then to get that line again, I'm going to push Control equals, and I want to choose the bottom right line there, and I want to know when x equals -2, so x equals -2, that is 7. Okay, so 7. So my input was -2, my output was 7. So that ordered pair could be written as -2, 7. The most common mistake that I see students make is they'll try and just type this in, but they don't use parentheses because they get lazy. So if you type in -2 squared plus 3, you actually get a different answer, okay? So it is really important that you use parentheses or just use the calculator to have it evaluated. It doesn't make those silly mistakes. So what this is actually doing is it does 2 squared, which is 4, and then puts that negative on the front of it. So that's doing -4 plus 3, which is not the correct way. You would want to square -2, which would be +4. So please use your calculator. Okay. All right, the next one, g of 0. So we're going to just substitute a 0 in for x right here. So where x is, I'm going to put a 0. I always use parentheses. Again, I think we can do this. 0 plus 1 is just 1. So that ordered pair would be 0, 1. All right. The next section gets a little bit trickier. So it's asking you to do f of 2 and g of 1, and then you're going to add those answers together. So I'm going to actually do f of 2, and then I'm going to do g of 1, and then I will add them together at the end. So f of 2, I'm going to use my calculator, but I want to plug it in. So I'm going to do 2 squared plus 3. That's f of 2 because I used the x squared plus 3 up here, the f equation. Whoops. All right, and then I'm going to do the g part of that equation, which is 1. Right here, we're plugging in a 1. 1 is going to go in for x plus 1. So 1 plus 1. All right. So if you do this using your calculator, you're going to get 4 plus 3, which is 7. And then to that, we're going to do this. 1 plus 1, hopefully you know, is 2. And this asks us to add those, right? So we're going to add them. So add those, which gives you 9. Again, please use your calculator to check those. All right, we actually are not going to do the remainder of those. We are going to do the next one. I want you to try that on your own. But these down here, we are actually not going to do. So you can eliminate those from your paper. All right, so I want you to try and finish this up. Do that and these 3 on the right-hand side. That last one on the right-hand side is a little tricky. But if you actually substitute this in for x, you should see what you're supposed to do after that. Right?